So, Roadhog is terrible in Overwatch 2. We've heard it from everyone. It makes sense. Only buff he got was an extra 100 HP. When you compare him to heroes like D.Va, like Reinhardt, who got that much or more in just armor additions, and you think about, wait, they also got an extra second of DM, double fire strike, cancelable and controllable charges, it makes sense that we would look at Roadhog and go, hey, this is a terrible hero in Overwatch 2. It also makes sense if you think about his playstyle. He relied very heavily on shrugging off everyone's attention, walking up a flank, hitting from a new angle with his hook, getting everyone to then massively pay attention to him after he hit or missed the hook, and then have his team fight them while they're swarming him, and he is taking half damage because he's using breather. So that was his playstyle, very much lose attention, get it back, that sort of thing. Worked pretty darn well, honestly. He was a bit annoying for some people for sure, annoying to play against, I get it, but that doesn't work. No one's gonna lose track of the only tank, right? Like, that doesn't make sense, so he's gotta be bad in Overwatch 2. And we see the tier lists confirm this, okay? Look at this worst hero from an aggregated tier list. We can look at another aggregated tier list versus scrim type stuff. Doesn't even make the tier list. He's on the bench tier that isn't even here. We can go look at Jaws, a caster for Owl, and no, worst tier for Roadhog, Custa, who also had access to Owl scrims, worst tier for him. And then Reinforce only bothered to give us the best and worst hero, and Roadhog is the worst hero. So surely we now know and understand that for Overwatch 2, Roadhog is a terrible character and there's no saving him. Or is he? What if he's actually pretty good? What if people are just playing him and thinking about him purely through an Overwatch 1 lens? So the only buff he directly got was that extra 100 HP. But two buffs or changes impact him pretty darn heavily. The first is armor. Now it's a flat 30% damage reduction while you have it. It used to impact him more heavily. He used to get shafted by armor harder than other heroes because he did pellet damage. So he would hit lots of individual hits that would do a bit of damage, and each of those would be reduced by up to 50%. And because they were little hits, you'd get that full 50% or close to it. Now, it's only a 30% reduction while that armor is there. That's a big deal for him. That's a significant damage upgrade. It's also a bit of a defense swing for him because him not having armor perhaps isn't as big a deal. But hey, that's one thing we want to think about. The other percent we're interested in is 50%. And what does 50% represent? Well, 50% represents the tank passive. In Overwatch 2, if you deal damage to or heal a tank, you only get 50%, so half of the ult charge you would if you dealt damage to or healed the same amount to another hero, to a DPS or support hero. And those two things make a bit of a difference. So how do those make a difference? Well, let's walk through some scenarios. The first thing we want to understand is Roadhog potentially has a better poke phase now. We look at Roadhog, stronger poke phase. Right clicks could do more if he's shooting at tanks specifically. Tanks work, you can hit those nice meat shots, damage isn't reduced as much when they have armor. Hey, that's pretty good. He's got a stronger poke phase than before. If he has a stronger poke phase than before, he's not as tied to having to go for those offensive hooks basically every time they were up, which is something that Overwatch 1 Hog absolutely had to do in order to get enough value. If he doesn't have to go for that hook every time it's up because he gets okay value without it, well, now he looks a little more comparable to off tanks that he was not comparable to in Overwatch 1. He always lost out to D.Va and Sigma in the vast majority of metas because he couldn't shut down opponent win conditions. Defense matrix, toggleable ability. You don't have to all-in commit your defense matrix. You can use a little of it here, little of it there, whatever. Sigma would have that barrier, that rock, hands. All three of those things could potentially shut down enemy win conditions, and he might all-in with hands, but then he still has rock and barrier, that sort of thing. So he could still shut down some things, and being able to deny the enemy solutions or win conditions to a fight just because they want to throw a grab or they have a blizzard or they have a hit scan on an off angle on high ground, those two could solve that. Roadhog couldn't. If Roadhog gets enough value with his right click, he now can go, hey, I can hook the soldier off the high ground to solve that. I can hook the Zarya that's walking right at us with grab, and that's okay. I didn't have to use my hook for something else the instant I had it, that sort of thing, because I was getting enough right-click value. But what does that really mean? So let's think about this hook. Let's think about the fact that tanks in general, maybe you're a little less interested in shooting them because you're only going to get half as much ult charge. If you get full ult charge from shooting other people, you get your ult more often. If you get your ult more often, you have an extra ability compared to other players in the lobby. You get to have more impact on the game. That's great. That's something that you might want to do. Okay, so what if you started running supports that specialized in interacting with people that weren't the tanks? So you go, hey, let's go ahead and bring a Zen and a Mercy, for example. Discord and Harmony Orb on the flank. Blue Beam on poke DPS or on people that are not the tank, not really a tank healer that we're dealing with here. And then Roadhog isn't sabotaging you because Roadhog can use Take a Breather, and it's a great deal for Roadhog. If someone goes ahead and shoots at him, does pretty good damage to him, whatever, they only get 50% ult charge for that, but he is able to himself go ahead and take a breather, only gets 50% ult charge from healing that back up, but that's a hog, one of the absolute worst ults in the game. In Overwatch 1, you cared about not using breather to heal yourself up when you weren't in danger because you wanted to feed your Ana, your BAP, someone the ult charge. That's very much not the case here. You would much rather your Ana takes offensive shots with that time, or your Zen leaves the Harmony Orb on the flank, or your Mercy is blue beaming your Ashe or someone instead of healing up your Roadhog. So that works out well, actually. That's a plus to him. So now what is he going to do? He's got this better poke phase with his right clicks, but what do we do? If you're running this greedy line, surely you're just going to get run over by tanks, right? The Doomfist slams in here. Oh, wait, no. Roadhog's always had a great matchup against Doomfist. Nothing's really changed here. Easiest hook of your life when he comes in there trying to slam, or if he punches in, no big deal. He punches your Roadhog, you body block, fine. Then you hook him, he doesn't get anything done. You scare Doomfist off, or you eliminate him basically immediately. It's not a good fight for him, even with his increased health, his rework, that sort of thing. Sure, that makes sense. But what about Well, I don't need to talk about Winston. Winston's got a better barrier now. Still not, also has more health. Okay, so great. Still not going to work out for him. Roadhog's always had a pretty good time against him. Sure, that makes sense. Wrecking Ball, okay, more armor, but again, you're not going to be getting off pile drives if Roadhog is able and allowed to hold his hook. You're not going to be meaningfully participating in getting good value in dives. Diva used to be Roadhog's bane, couldn't hook anyone because the pink robot appears and denies the value from it, just eats the shotgun pellets. But if you do better damage to Diva now, as soon as she commits her boosters for a dive, as soon as any of these people commit their mobility for a dive, you hook them. Now they're no longer contributing to that dive. You make them leave very quickly because you take them out faster than you did before. You might not actually take them out faster because they have more health, but you do more damage, relatively speaking, than you did before, and they need resources. Winston very much needs his support to help him out, to gift him some resources, to donate to him. Doomfist will almost certainly want the same thing. Diva does want the same thing. If she's playing in an aggressive dive style, and not a low resource style like she sometimes does as off-tank. Wrecking Ball's a little different, but these three, hey, want resources. Roadhog doesn't need those resources. He's happy to breather himself if he has to. Okay, that works out. So, hey, these dive tanks are kind of controlled by having Roadhog, and they can't just play take a poke phase against him because he's got those right clicks he can throw at them, meaning, hey, there's pressure on them to make something happen. We could go over to the poke tank versus poke tank matchup, but anyone can tell you that that's not a particularly good fight for Sigma. It never has been. Sigma does not like running into Roadhogs on the flank in Overwatch 1. I don't expect that that's going to massively change. Maybe it does, but that's probably another one that he's got handled just fine. So then we can look at our brawl tanks. Well, you might have to handle it a little bit differently. You definitely put more poke pressure on Reinhardt than he does on you, though yeah, he's giving his team a shield, but you're playing around cover, around a corner, maybe with a Zen who can charge right clicks, with a Hog who can use the cadence of his weapon fire to peek, unpeek, that sort of thing. You're just using cover. No big deal. Reinhardt starts to get close, you start to angle away, he goes for your backline, backline, and you pull him away with your hook, and he can't get back there unless he still has his charge, and if he still has his charge, yeah, whatever. Okay, that's not a terrible matchup either. That can work, and they're playing Brawl, you're clearly playing something pokey at this point. I'm kind of okay with it. That's not bad. Now, you're probably going to have a worse time against Orisa. She's brawly as well, sort of a brawl poke hybrid leaning brawl it looks like. She's got that double fortify, regular fortify, plus a fortify during her ult. That's probably a problem for Roadhog, probably a bad matchup. Zarya might be a similar thing, might be kind of a split between them. Double bubble is an issue. She can potentially pair your hook with your bubble, but if she messes that up, you pull her away. You pull her away, it's pretty good. Hey, that works out. She's not farming grabs off of you. She might do lots of damage to you, but she's not farming grabs off of you, and you can take her down pretty darn quick. So, hey, that actually looks okay when we think of those tank matchups. Huh. How did that work out? So we get to maybe have a greedier backline. We have a little bit of a poke phase. This greedier backline isn't so interested in helping out our Roadhog as our Roadhog isn't helping them in sort of playing a anti-tank tank. That could be pretty cool. Now, are there flaws with this? Absolutely. His damage might still be simply too low. His right-click damage might be too low. If his right-click damage just doesn't feel like enough pressure, this all falls apart. It simply doesn't work. Other issue he's going to run into is he's still bad at helping his team rotate. Yes, he can body block for them, bullets bouncing off his gut. Hey, that's something, but it's not as helpful as having DM to rotate, a Rhine shield to rotate, being able to hit a boop on the opponents to disrupt them while your backline rotates, or a Sigma shield to rotate. Those things are all better than what he can do to help his team rotate. On the other hand, he's got some tools. He's got some tools and they're interesting. So is he really like the top tier best tank? No, probably not. But is he the throw pick that it looks like he's being advertised as? Maybe not. Might he be that throw pick in your ladder games? Yeah, probably. Hate to break it to you. That's probably what you're looking at. But if you adjusted to this anti-tank playstyle, maybe that works pretty darn nicely. Anyway, it's something we'll have to check out once we have access to the beta, once we can start getting into scrims. It and many other things will be worth testing, but those are my thoughts. That's what I wanted to explore about Roadhog today. What do you think? Are you guys going, hey, no, that doesn't sound like it could work at all? Oh, that sounds pretty interesting. Roadhog completely shifting roles as an anti-tank tank as opposed to someone who's going for lots of hooks on squishies, trying to instantly delete people. Pretty big difference. He's one of the few peoples left who can still control tanks. Let me know what you think. Let me know your thoughts. Looking forward to those Roadhogs on your team, hating them, hoping that they'll go refer to this video and maybe play a little bit differently. Definitely let me know. Do subscribe for more. We're on that road to Overwatch 2. Want to see what happens there. By subscribing, you get to see my videos and you get to pick that contender coach brain as we get towards Overwatch 2. Get ahead of the curve. That'll do it for now. Thanks. Temporal out.